A very good morning to you. It's Friday, the 10th of October 2025. Let's debate and talk about the big stories. A lot of interesting stories before us this morning. Nicholas is seated in the studio to provide analysis, and it's not just limited to the studio alone. You also can join in the conversation by calling 0807 777 9927. The headline news analysis comes your way every single morning, 8 o'clock to 8:30. 30 minutes of discussing some of the big news that made the rounds across major newspapers in Nigeria. My name is Adeyemi.
I'm Danielle Shitta-Bey. Thank you so much for joining us on the headline news analysis this morning. Good morning to you, Nicholas.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
Fine, thank you.
Okay, then. Yeah. The views to be expressed is not in any way the position of FlowFM 92.7, not the staff therein, but as expressed by our in-house analyst, Nicholas Uwerunonye. And to also remind you that we're streaming live on YouTube and on Facebook this morning at FlowFM 927, so you can get on any of these apps and get on live action happening in the studio right now. Let's dive right into the stories. President Bola Tinubu has nominated Professor Joash Amukpiton, SAN, as the new chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, citing his integrity, a political stance, and record of service. The president announced this during Thursday's meeting of the National Council of State at the State House, Abuja, where members unanimously endorsed the nomination. Now, Professor Amukpiton, a 58-year-old professor of law from Kogi State, is the deputy vice chancellor of the University of Jos and a senior advocate of Nigeria. And following the council's approval, his name will be forwarded to the Senate for confirmation, and he is set to succeed Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, whose 10-year tenure as INEC chairman ended on Tuesday. Now, my question is, what do you think Professor Amukpiton will be doing differently as to, bring back the presumed lost confidence Nigerians have in the electoral process, looking at 2023 elections?
Well, he fits the criteria of, any aspiring candidate for that seat. When you look at his record, and the president did say that he has a non-partisan stance.
Mm-hmm. It's apolitical.
It's apolitical. But really, the truth is, we are all political animals at some level or the other. When you look at the CVs, because when I read about it yesterday, I crossed.
Quite impressive.
It's quite. He's quite impressive. I looked at it. I cross-examined it. I cross-referenced it with all the profile of past, INEC chairman from Apata, Abel Gubadia, Maurice Iwu, and of course Atahiru Jega. Before we have this one, and I looked, and there was something that stood out. One of them, and only one person had it, and that was Atahiru Jega. You see, apart from given the sterling credentials, one of the things that stood Atahiru Jega out was the fact that he had a name to protect. He had a name. He knew that the moment he's finished with that, he goes back to an environment where he will be critically scrutinized or even sanctioned, and that is the academia. You understand? So, for me, that is a red flag. You understand? He has practiced law within the Nigerian space. And of course, if we're able to go into one of those stories that we'll be talking today, I'll be telling you something, that happened yesterday, where I attended a lecture by Professor Dinkalo, Chidi, the professor of law, professor of law practice and international human rights, attended, at Kwasu, one of Yusuf Ali lecture series at, organized by Kwasu, and, he said so much, he took his audience down memory lane, history. He said everything that is wrong with our law practice in Nigeria. That we are still dependent on the colonial masters. We have not decolonized our legal, our legal system. So that is why it appears as if, law is there, but it's not serving the purpose of Nigerians. We have taken someone within that industry to run our INEC.
I think he's going to be the first, senior advocate to be chairman.
That is where I have. That is where I have my problem.
Okay.
That is why I have a bit of fear. But again, like I said, he has, when you look at the criteria, when you look at every single item, within his resume, makes him eligibly qualified. And I'm wishing and I'm hoping that he understands that there is life beyond INEC. Apparently, I'm sure he will be reading about, what people have been saying about his predecessor.
Well, he's going to be the most talked about Nigerian for the next couple of days. As a matter of fact, for the next 1 year or thereabout and after, he's going to be one of the most talked about Nigerian because again, the responsibilities on him is
enormous.
It's enormous.
Yeah.
And then he brings me to the question: he being a senior advocate of Nigeria, and then the electoral reforms as currently before the House of Assembly. Do you think that he will, as INEC chairman, be able to prefer solutions to some of the problems or the electoral matters that the country has been faced with in recent or in past election cycles?
My first expectation is to obey all court orders that are before INEC, which Mahmoud has been dribbling himself around, dribbling his way through all the while. All those pronouncements, recognizing the chairmanship of, one party or the other, and he should be able, legally speaking, to put all those matters at rest. Then the issue of, registering political parties. There has been court orders on that. I know that at some point, Gani Fawemi, took INEC to court and won that they have no right to either strip to deregister a party. So far it meets the minimum criteria. You have to register them. I think there was a court ruling to that effect in 2003. Thereabout. It was championed by Gani Fawemi. So you have that conundrum already waiting. About 150 something political parties registered. You understand, and still waiting for asking for registration. That are in the doldrums that haven't been recognized by INEC. So that is on the one hand, and of course there are other pockets of INEC. Court ruling. You have the case of Mahmoud being court asking IG to arrest
from
him
Osun State.
From Osun State. So, as a lawyer, I expect him to be able to professionally navigate those minefields. So those are some of the basic expectations I expect. I want from him. Then again, you see, we have the issue of pre-election matters. How does he deal with it?
Post-election matters as well.
Pre-election matters, especially in the area of qualification of a candidate. The issue of forgery and certificates and things. How does he deal with it? Those are some of the basic things that I think. The moment we're able to clean up some of those things, at least we are reducing. We are upping the credibility of INEC and its ability to run elections.
All right. Well, we hope that he stands very. It's a whole lot, and he stands tall in his decisions as he leads, INEC, and of course, and be able to, give Nigerians hope and confidence again in the whole process and trust the process. Because I was reading somewhere that. The party, INEC registration right now, voter registration, pardon me, that is increasing by the day, and a lot of people want to get registered. But that's not the question. Again, the responsibility is for him to be able to get the people to go to the polls and vote.
And give them the confidence that they are going to count. Because that is just the baseline. The moment the average Nigerian knows that his vote will count, I can assure you that we'll be having a different kind of conversation. It's not as if it's going to be an El Dorado kind of utopia. No, that's not what is going to happen. But what I think will happen is that we'll be allowed to choose our devils as leaders. Of course, you can't have a perfect system. It's not possible. No, under this system of things, you can't. But if we make mistakes, it will be sincere mistakes, not mistakes that we deliberately made, knowing that this is mistake, then at the end we turn around and start complaining. No, that is not what we are talking about.
All right. 0807-777-9927 is number to call to be a part of the conversation this morning. Let's move to another news story real quick. Still on the presidency. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has granted presidential pardon and clemency to 175 persons, including posthumous pardons for the late Major General Maman Vatsa and nationalist Herbert Macaulay. The decision endorsed by the National Council of State at its meeting in Abuja also covers former lawmaker Farouk Lawan and several others found to have shown remorse and readiness for reintegration into society. He also granted clemency to 82 inmates, reduced the prison terms of 65 people, and commuted 7 death sentences to life imprisonment. He further pardoned the 9 executed Ogoni activists, including Ken Saro-Wiwa, while conferring posthumous honors on 4 others.
Wow,
That's a lot of
that's a lot of package you have there.
prerogative of mercy.
Yeah, prerogative of mercy. But you see, what really struck me is the case of pardon for Abad Macaulay. And I think even Nnamdi Azikiwe was mentioned somewhere there.
Yeah, a part of it.
A part of it, yeah. A part of it. I was talking about a lecture by Professor Rinkalo. And he what he said was that, look, that one very big mistake we made in the teaching of law in Nigerian university is that we tend to teach it as just a subject, that we should teach it as a narrative from the historical point of view. If we talk of A.V. Dicey, I think he's the one that brought this issue of, is it rule of law? Yeah, A.V. Dicey, yeah. We talk of Lord Denning and the rest of them. Do we know who these people are in relation to Africans? That we are talking of a law that presumes that the black man is not a human being. That is what it is from that mindset that those colonial ordinances that we have passed on as laws were made from. So that is why it appears as if we have a law that does not serve us. So imagine the people that became the founders of Nigeria, were convicted under those laws. And they were draconian laws. And for more than how many years? Over 170 something years. Is it? How many years are we talking about now? Over 100, how many years? We haven't deemed it fit to grant them pardon. Why? And yet, you even have Abat Macaulay in one of our currency, right? So, that tells you the quality of jurisprudence we run in Nigeria. That to a very large extent, we are still additionally dependent, on the colonial masters. That lecture yesterday was an eye-opener. It was electrifying, and ironically, the former vice president was there. Osinbajo was there, and of course, from there, I learned that Odinkalu was a student at the University of Lagos. When the former vice president came up and said, he made, that is, he agreed in total with what Professor Chidi Odinkalu said about our additional dependence on the colonial masters. And he did say things that unless we tend to create a law, an organic law that respects Nigerians as Nigeria's black men, you understand, that we will continue to have this issue. That is why over 100 years after, we are pardoning people that were founders of Nigeria, people who fought for our independence. Now that aside, that is just one part of it. Then of course we have the case of Mama Vatsa. Of course, the controversy
around is
it's massive. Till date, IBB has not been able to. That is General Ibrahim Badamasi Bangida has not been able to, clearly explain, the decision that led to his being executed. You understand? For me, I think that to a very large extent, the very big demon haunting IBB is the fact that a military ruler that was unpopular sentencing a charismatic military officer to death. That is just it. You understand? But I recall Domkat Bali. Yeah. General Donkat Bali. There was an interview he granted. I think it was in the news. I read that. Either in the news. I think it was in the news. It was a cover interview in the news magazine. At that time, he's saying that the Supreme Military Council was divided. For him, there was a big issue, because it was more or less like, there were circumstances that showed that he was part of the coup plotters. But there are others that are not convincing enough Then he then raised this question: should we kill the man for something we are not entirely sure of? You know, but of course, on the part of IBB, who is his best friend, you understand? And he was under pressure, and people were watching his body language. Are you going to pardon him because he's your friend and all those things? So, you know, it was a very big. I think it was a very big decision for IBB, and except you sit on that seat, you won't understand.
Honestly.
Happened. So, you know, what I think the president and the Council of State try to do is to put all those things to rest, you know, by pardoning them and see if there can be a semblance of healing that can happen from there.
I was just going to ask you that. Are we in the process of healing from the past that still haunts us as a people? Because again, take a look at, I remember when from late President Muhammadu Buhari, you know, started the Ogoni cleanup, and all of these things, and then the road to, you know, healing and all of these things. How much effort have we put into that? And considering what President Bola Tinubu is doing, going back to, you know, the Ogoni AIDS and then Kensaro Wiwa, and then you know, all of these people. Are we on track to healing?
Yeah. No. What I can say is this: there is an intention for healing to happen at the level of federal government. Successive federal government, the successful government after Abacha. There has been effort, but the operationalizing of that intention is where we have a problem. You understand? Okay.
All right.
Let's take this call. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, Danielle. Good morning, Dayo. And good morning, Nicholas.
Good morning to you.
Thank God it's Friday.
Oh, well, bless God for that. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Toyin. I'm calling from the
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Please go ahead.
All right. Quickly, what the president is doing is quite commendable. I see it as trying to heal every fragment of the society, you know. Because for me, this is my opinion. I believe we don't have national heroes, but we have regional heroes. And you know, for every region, whoever they see as a hero, and is not seen to be a good person in our national lives, that means in a way that region feels bad. No, but what the president is doing is trying to make sure he calms down every fragment of our geopolitical zones, because we don't have to tell lies, and we don't have to run away from the fact that one of the problems we are still having in our political system today is the fact that we have not gotten over the consequences of the Civil War. There has not been true integration and true forgiveness to a certain region. So, and what the president is doing now, it's really, really commendable, but I want to see him do more, especially with what is happening in Lagos at the moment. This is very, very important that we need to step up. And secondly, I would want to see him do in terms of giving pardon to people that language and the
Okay. All right, Tony, please try and call back. Tony raised something very, very important, and I think it was still going to surface as we go on with the conversation. Now, with the presidential pardons and all of these things, and then to inmates, how about convicted, you know, inmates in Nigerian prisons? Because if we consider that, it's on the high side.
You mean that is people that have not been convicted?
They've not been tried.
Yeah, they've not gone to trial.
So what is the legal system doing for those, you know, kind of Nigerians in such situations?
In fact, one poster boy of such, you know, is this issue of Nnamdi Kanu, you know, and that ties in with what Tony said. You know, for me, you see, people that have not been convicted, that they have not had their day in court. You know, when they have not had their day in court, I think it will be preemptive of the government, of federal government, to intervene and grant them a pardon. A pardon only comes after you've been convicted. Can they speed up the process of them appearing in court? That is exactly the problem that we've been talking about. That is the colonial. You see, they created a law that makes it easy for them to extract resources from Nigeria. In fact, let me even recall one of the things that, Professor Odin Kalu said. He said, the person we should hang in national honor on, or the thing that we should hang in national honor on as the savior of Nigeria is the mosquito. Yeah, the mosquito. Because the mosquito was the scourge of the white men. If there hadn't been mosquito, what would we have in Nigeria is a South African situation where you have settler white men. But the mosquito was a menace and a terror to them. So he said, but for the mosquito. So that is why we should have a national honor, a day that will dedicate to celebrating the mosquito in Nigeria. You understand? So now, because of that, they created an ordinance, they created laws that allows Nigeria to be an extractive entity where they extract resources for the First World War, the Second World War. And if you look at those dates, they coincide with things, that is a significant dates in the annals of our history. 1914, Civil War, World War I. 1919, World War I ended. Look at this vis-a-vis Nigerian history. 1998, what happened then? You see significant things happening in Nigeria. You understand? So now, sorry.
I'm so sorry to bother you, Nicholas. Let's take this call. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Okay. Please go ahead.
So, that is the reason why our court system is the way it is. It is not meant to dispense justice as we know justice to be.
Nicholas, just for education's sake, let's take the case of Herbert Macaulay, who was imprisoned in 1913 and 1928.
Twice.
By the British, colonial masters. Now, the moment Nigeria gained independence, shouldn't such have been cleared off from history?
It should have been cleared off from history. But you need to understand, 1960. But where was the highest court of the law? It was still in London until 1963. You see that, that dependence was there. They made sure they wind us. That is, we are spoon-fed with their own system that presumes that we are not humans. That Africa is unoccupied. Look, this is not my word. These are research-based deliveries that I listened to yesterday from Professor Odinkalu. You understand? So now, what we're saying is that we can say a lot of things. We can do a lot of we can do a lot of dissection, but without looking at the reason why these are there. And that is that historical analogy that I was talking about. That there is a need for us to learn our problems from historical perspective. How did we get here? Why is it like that? Also, we need to understand it. So, all these things we are talking about, why things appears to be the way they are, is because we haven't been thinking independently. That is why you can have the shame of having the man we call, the father of Nigeria, still an ex-convict, more than 100, even how many
books
years
of the colonial masters.
Yeah, in our own books. That is the country he founded. You understand? So it's a huge contradiction, and I think it's quite sobering, really.
All right, let's take a call. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning to everyone.
Good morning to you as well. What's your name?
This is Jim from Fatih.
A Jim from Fatih. Good morning. Please go ahead.
Yes. It's a Jim Maduku.
Okay.
I agree with the first caller. You see, in fact, I'm not playing sentiment, and I believe that civil war has not ended. And that's my own point of view. It may not be the point of view of others. That civil war has not ended. If it has ended, I really expected Mr. President to use that yesterday pardon. I'm not asking him to pardon Nnamdi Kanu, but to withdraw the case to allow peace, Dayo, to reign in that part of the country. I'm telling you, I'm assuring you that if that guy is released, there will be peace in that part of the country. We can see how we are summoning bandits with arms in their hands, begging them for peace, begging them, bandits killing with arms. Yes, we cannot pardon this guy who is only for freedom. In fact, to me, if I view other guys doing, it is not to declare Republic of Biafra or what, is to, in fact, it is to allow peace and let there be justice in this country. So that's yesterday, pardon, I was really disappointed. I thought by now that we should have been looking for peace to reign in that country.
All right.
Thank you, and God bless FlowFM.
All right, thank you. Or back at you. Ejim Madu. Thank you so very much from Fati. Well, that's the comment. Well, our time is really, really running out. So we just need to conclude for this morning.
Okay. All right. There are a couple of stories that we should be able to touch on, but because of time, we're not going to be able to. But I'll just breeze through it, and then you can talk about it a little bit. And we'll pick it up again on Monday. A couple of probes. The House of Representatives has directed its Committee on Petroleum and Public Assets to investigate the non-functionality of Nigeria's state-owned refineries in Port Harcourt, Warri, Kaduna, despite an estimated $18 billion reportedly spent on their rehabilitation, as well as federal government directing tertiary institutions to submit reports of unutilized TET fund allocations within 30 days.
Well, that is, you see, those two instances they are symptomatic of the black hole where the public resources disappears into without a trace.
Keep pouring money and money.
We are talking of turnaround maintenance here, you know. The only thing getting refurbished are the people taking the contracts, not the refineries over the years. You know, so they are going to have a field day, you know, getting it, because I sincerely hope this is not an rigmarole at the end of the day for just to score a cheap political point. You know, but on the other hand, the case of remittances of, spent funds for TET fund is another, source of corruption in official spending. You know, money that are not expended. When you ask them to return it, you know, you hardly find most, parastatals being able to, account for them. You know, so but if we have to unpack this, it's going to take a lot of time.
We could pick it up next week.
Yeah, we could.
If it pops up again. All right. So, what was the highlight